Hey, what is up guys? It is Slikk here. I'm back again with another video, and in this one we're going to be talking about a scoop coming from an individual named Geno, who's well known in the Nintendo world for being a pretty solid scooper. I looked at his track record. I would say he definitely has overall a good track record. Of course, he's gotten some things wrong in the past, and this leak I'm about to read you is totally focused on the Nintendo side of things. It's 8 pages long, and you can read the entire thing down below. This is not a Batman-centered leak, but rather one that focuses entirely on the Nintendo brand and their most upcoming console, which is the Nintendo Switch. You may be asking how then that this relates to the Damian Wayne Batman game. Well, according to Geno, not only the Damian Wayne Batman game, but also Injustice 2 and WB Montreal's other video game replacing the Suicide Squad game will be coming out for the Nintendo Switch in the next 2 years. Although Injustice 2 is coming out early this spring, later in the year it will be coming out for the Nintendo Switch in a new port. But anyway, back to the Damian Batman game, this actually, in my opinion, adds credibility to this potential leak, because he's not a Batman scooper and he's not posting on the Batman subreddit, and therein, he's not really looking at it from the perspective that we are, so he doesn't really seem to care about the game. It's only just a blurb of a mention in this 8-page leak that he has. Really, it's about Nintendo, and this seems to be that he's just passing on what he's heard from the Nintendo perspective of things, and you'll see how that actually implies things about the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version of the game here in just a minute, including the title of the game, which he claims to know. So anyway, here's what he says. The game is called Batman Arkham Apocalypse, and it will be ported to the Nintendo Switch in 2018. Also, the cancelled Suicide Squad game is being replaced with a game called Ready Up 1, which is based on the 2018 movie directed by Steven Spielberg. First of all, let me just state this. How can you make this up? How in the world could anybody make up Ready Up 1 based off a Steven Spielberg movie hitting in March 2018? It is produced and published by Warner Brothers Pictures, which makes sense because this is a studio owned by Warner Brothers. But even so, again, the fact that somebody could make up a Ready Up 1 game is just a little bit out of reach. Not to say that it doesn't sound unusual, it sounds very unusual, but as does the entire idea of a Damian Wayne Batman game, in my personal opinion. It sounds quite odd as to what, Batman Arkham would do. But it appears they're doing it. There's overwhelming evidence suggesting that that's the case. So really, anything is game at this point. And as I said, I find it very hard that Geno made this up and just completely got this out of nothing. Not to say it will come true, but I find it very unlikely that Geno does not have some sort of scoop or insider telling him this information. Second, the title Batman Arkham Apocalypse actually fits pretty well with what we've heard about the game, and that includes a city that's war-torn. It looks like something has happened here. Also very foggy on the streets, and just overall a little bit more grim and dreary in terms of the map. We also see Gothcorp and stuff like that, and Wayne Tower is in really rough shape, like it hasn't been window washed in a while, sort of deal, and it just looks worn down a lot. I'm not saying I think it's necessarily a good title. I think it's somewhat of a weak one actually, and I think that there's a possibility they could change it. From what I've heard, there was multiple titles in the running for the game, and Arkham Apocalypse may be what they've landed on at this point. As I said, I don't think it's a very good title, but it seems reasonable and it makes sense with what we've heard about the game. So let's just assume for a second that what Geno is saying is legit, and this game is, Batman Arkham Apocalypse, and Ready Up 1 is a thing, etc., etc. Is Geno saying that the Damian Batman game is hitting in 2018? No. So let's consider that the Wii U edition of Batman Arkham City, which was called the Armored Edition, did not come out until 13 months after Batman Arkham City came out on the PS4 and Xbox One. Additionally, Geno says that the Nintendo Switch Injustice Edition is hitting later in 2017, whereas it is coming out in early 2017 on the PS4 and Xbox One. What is likely the case is that the Nintendo Switch version of Batman Arkham Apocalypse has plans to be ported in 2018, but the title itself is going to be releasing in October of 2017 on PS4 and Xbox One. Also, keep in mind that every single Batman Arkham game up to this point has had a scheduled release date of October. Delays happen, of course, as it did with Batman Arkham Knight, but it's likely that WB Montreal plans to release the game in October of this year, that is 2017. The bad news of this leak, of course, is that WB Montreal is no longer developing 2 DC titles, and that was one of the big things that they were talking about all along, is that they were going to be making 2 games. They've been bragging about it. We've got 2 titles coming out, DC related, and I personally thought and hoped that as the game was canceled, that being the Suicide Squad game, they would replace it with something else. You know, Green Arrow comes in, Superman comes in. Instead, they've replaced it with this Ready Up 1, which is a film directed by Steven Spielberg, a tie-in movie hitting in 2018. That is the game that they're making. It's unfortunate, and it's very clear that corporate influence has infiltrated WB Montreal here. I doubt it was their dream to make a Ready Up 1 video game, but even so, this is a studio owned, operated, entirely consumed, basically, by Warner Brothers. They made the company, they own the entire thing. So they can decide what they want to make. They're banking on the Steven Spielberg film, which is a good idea. He's obviously pretty much one of the best directors of all time. And nonetheless, WB Montreal has done projects like this in the past. If we're really going to look at it, you know, Legends of Chima mobile game, and they do work that Rocksteady needs them to do, like the Batgirl DLC. So whatever WB needs, they use their company, WB Games Montreal, to fill in the blocks. And it's very evident that Ready Up 1 is one of those things they needed to be cleared in. It might just be a mobile game, for all I know. It really might be, you know, just on the Wii and mobile and stuff like that. That's a possibility. Or it could be like, you know, it's not going to be a AAA size Batman Arkham game. That's for damn sure, I can tell you, because it's Ready Up 1, the video game based off the movie. I mean, it's kind of obvious here, unless it's a big property I don't know about, but otherwise I'm not seeing that being the case. So what do you guys think about these leaks? Of course, take it with a grain of salt, but something to me feels legit about this information. Again, how do you make up Ready Up 1? That's just ridiculous. There's no way Geno pulled that out of his ass. Just this random movie. It really does make sense to me that, you know, WB Games Montreal was sanctioned to create this title, even though, again, it sounds a little bit odd and it's not something I believe. I do believe, and I do have a reasonable suspicion to note, that the Suicide Squad game that was canceled is replaced with a non-DC title. I had a fear of that, and what I was hoping is that they would go all in on the Batman game, all 400 of their employees start working on that game, but what turned out happening is they just replaced it with something else that WB needed them to do. So that's a little bit unfortunate. The good news to come out of this is that we basically have a reasonable likelihood that this game could be coming out in October 2017 for a targeted release date, and they're in 2018, following up on the Nintendo Switch. We also have confirmation from Geno, which is not real confirmation, that the game is going to be called Batman Arkham Apocalypse. Again, I think this is somewhat of an okay title, probably not the best ever, but even so, they could very well change it before the game comes out. So let me know your thoughts on this leak in the comment section below. Do you like what you hear? Do you not? Of course, leave all those comments in the comment section below. My name is Slikk. See you guys in tomorrow's video.